Before we entertain the motion to set the agenda, I have been advised by the city manager that we do need to make one change in the order due to the availability of staff to discuss the topic. We have been requested to move item C4 on the regular agenda to C1 and do the yard waste discussion first, and then slide everything else back one to accommodate that. So does anyone have any issues with that? All right, then I would entertain a motion to set the agenda as modified.
Motion to set the agenda as modified.
Second.
Motion by Alex, seconded by Charlie. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, the agenda has been set. And that brings us to the consent agenda. We have one item on the consent agenda, and for that, I will hand it over to the city manager, Miles Braswell.
Mayor Pro Tem and members of council, this is a budget amendment request from the fire department, given that their self-contained breathing apparatus compressor is pretty much dead. They can't find the parts, as you read from the memo. It's not supported by the manufacturer, plus they were sourcing secondary aftermarket parts for some period of time. While it's down, our fire department also has to fill the cylinders through our mutual aid with the Cramerton Fire Department and the South Point Volunteer Fire Department. So there's a gap in coverage when they're away from the station, so they're requesting this compressor to be replaced. And the amount of the budget amendment is $62,866. And this is based on a cooperative agreement through the North Carolina Sheriff's Association contract number 26-03-0521. Come back over to you, Mayor Pro Tem.
All right, thank you, Miles. Any questions about the consent agenda item? All right, if that is the case, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
No, you.
Second.
Motion by Catherine, second by Alex. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that item is approved. Thank you. That brings us to the regular agenda and new item C1, which is yard waste discussion. I see our Public Works Director, Jonathan Wilson, heading to the podium, so I will turn it over to them.
Good evening, Council and Mayor Pro Tem.
Good evening.
All right, so discussion on yard waste ordinance revisions. So how we got here, back in July of this year, the city received a complaint regarding placement of yard waste in Poplar Street, in the street, and on the sidewalk, also throughout the Stone Manor Village area. Some residents came and spoke at the city council meeting during public comment. Code enforcement also investigated the complaint, found that those properties were in violation of the ordinance. They issued warnings at that time, and I apologize, that's when they then came to the council meeting on August 4th. So at that time, council directed city staff to hold a town hall style meeting with residents on Poplar Street and the Stone Manor Village neighborhood. That took place on August 20th, 2025 at 6 p.m. here in this room. There were approximately 30 residents in attendance for the meeting. Several items were discussed during this meeting, one being the Poplar Street infrastructure project, which actually bids tomorrow at 3 p.m. Additionally, some other infrastructure concerns, ranging from the asphalt, curb and gutter, water main, sewer main, stormwater. Speeding was a concern that was brought up, and then, of course, the yard waste placement in the street, on the sidewalk, or in yards. And then we found that there was conflicting information in the ordinances and on the yard waste flyer that is available on the city's website. Staff met several times. I put the dates on August 25th, September 10th, and September 18th. We identified The two chapters in the Code of Laws that speak to yard waste being Chapter 50 and Chapter 92. So our recommendations coming from the town hall meeting and from the staff meetings were to consolidate all of the yard waste language in one chapter in the Code of Laws. That would be Chapter 50, which is titled Garbage and Refuse. It would be the primary chapter for regulating garbage and refuse, which also includes yard waste. Chapter 92, Community Beautification. Those items that were found in that chapter relating to tree trimmings, grass clippings, leaves, etc., we have moved that language to Chapter 50, which is in the packet. The next steps, so the approval of Chapters 50 and Chapter 92 amendments, which are in the council packet. Once those ordinances are amended, we would amend the program flyers to match the requirements in the ordinance. And we're also suggesting a rollout park program for specific yard waste. Right now, residents have a garbage rollout and a recycling rollout, and then if they choose to have some sort of can on their own, they can. Our staff will pick it up on the weekly schedule for yard waste. But we are proposing to actually offer 92 or 96 gallon rollout bins for residents specifically for yard waste. So as you can see, it is very similar to the rollouts that are currently in place. We would choose brown with brown lid. However, staff would suggest that the residents purchase these rollouts from the city. They would be stamped with City of Belmont on them, yard waste only. We did get quotes from a supplier. Of course, you have to order them in bulk. The more you order, the lower the price per unit. However, we suggest setting the price, if we go this route, to $85 a can. That would cover the purchase of the can and then getting that can to the resident, staff time, maintenance, vehicle, gas, etc. And that is all I have at this time. If anyone has any questions?
I do. So what if a resident already has a can that they're utilizing this for? Does it have to be this particular can?
It does not.
Okay.
However, if they were to choose this can, what our plan long-term is going to be, if we go this route, we will create an actual route for residents who have a rollout can. And that would be, Mondays would be their collection day. I'm just throwing it out. It may or may not be Monday. Monday, we would say, if you have a rollout can provided by the city for yard waste, we will collect your can on Mondays. It'll be put into a routing system. Our mini trash truck would go and collect all of that on Monday.
Because we used to do the route system, right? What's the implications from the staffing perspective? Are we gonna be able to sustain that with existing staff, or is that something that we're gonna have to add on as additional?
Right now, we anticipate being able to sustain that with existing staff. Now, if every resident in the city decided they wanted a rollout can, that might be
Right.
a different situation.
What would be the frequency for the yard waste pickup?
Right now, it's once a week, and we would aim to keep it at 1 week.
Okay.
And then how would we plan on communicating this out to the community?
We could send things out through City Connect, Facebook, Instagram, put it on the city's website, include it in the water bills. There's a myriad of options.
And do you guys think that this, because I was at that meeting with the folks on Poplar Street, and I think, this probably solves the issue, particularly about the community piece, if the HOA at Stone Manor Village will get behind that, right, and we allow that. But if we think about the older section of Poplar Street, do we think that this might, discourage folks by saying your option is an $85 can, right? Because there's some pretty high tensions already. I don't know how this particularly addresses the root cause of this issue, right?
I don't know if there's many other options. It's been a challenge.
Yeah.
You can still have is folks that place the yard waste on the sidewalk or in the street. So you'll have this option here, if you don't like, to place it in your yard, and then you can have this option where you can place it in the bin and push it out, and it's collected on a regular basis. We did work with the Stowe Manor Village, going to your point, and they designated 2 common areas, that have been identified previously for yard waste. So we reactivated those 2 spots for Stowe Manor Village, which is 2 areas that anybody can place their yard waste in as well. So we've already started the collecting of that yard waste probably 3 weeks ago. Yeah, on Wednesday, so they don't have to call in, they can just automatically place it there, and our guys
No
just swing
issues or
by.
anything like that?
To my knowledge, we haven't had any issues.
So these residents along Poplar are essentially gonna have 3 options for yard waste. They can continue doing what they're doing, they can put it at the 2 common areas for collection.
Well,
That's
the
not
old
for
Poplar
yeah.
will not have the common area designation, because I think correct me if I'm wrong, the only way we're able to do that in Stowe Manor area, because they have an HOA that's
Yeah,
able
HOA.
to centralize.
That's right, doesn't include those.
Yeah.
Okay. But the entire street, both old and new, would have access to this program.
Yes.
Or leave in their yard.
So if
So
I
you
have
still
my,
have 3 options, they
Totally
can
got
leave it in their yard, use their own container,
Yeah.
or buy this one.
so if I have my own can though, all I do is just request, like I would if it was
Yes.
just in my yard.
If you're not gonna use the way it's currently being proposed, if you're not gonna use the rollout can, that's on the screen here in the packet, you would still be picked up on Wednesday. You would still have to call in your request, submit it through the portal or call Public Works prior to, I believe it's noon the day before, so Tuesday.
So is that accounted for in these amendments to the ordinance? Because I'm not sure that was clear to me in my reading of it, that you could use your own can. Because I thought to date, it's been, you put it out and you're supposed to like,
Loose.
loose and 4 foot, cuts of the branches and put them out, but it's not, so I don't know if that was necessarily clear to me in the amended ordinance that you could put your own
It
can out.
doesn't specifically state that you can put it in your own can. We would allow that. It would just be picked up the way that yard waste is currently picked up on Wednesday.
Can we adjust, if we approve this, can we just adjust or modify this with adding in the language that residents can use their own can, is that?
We prefer that the residents use this can. We had that discussion because if folks have like their own container out there, you can imagine like how much people can actually put in that container. And so our folks, we were concerned that they would have to actually pick this up and put it in there based on the tote there. Our actual garbage truck actually picks it up, so we don't have to worry about, the folks getting injured. So that's why we were saying, let's go with this route. That's what we prefer. If somebody bought like the 96-gallon roll-out container and it's not that particular container, then our machine won't pick it up because there's a certain, that bar that's in there, the grabber catches the bar and dumps it in. So you have to be careful on if you're buying your own 96-gallon. That would be a little different for us. So I would prefer that we go this route if we need to.
Yes, but to Alex's point, I imagine a lot of residents would prefer not to pay $85.
Yeah.
But they can still put it in
Yeah.
their yard, right?
Yes.
Just let me know.
So they have an option.
I mean, what else do you propose?
Yeah, I did have another question though, the way some of this was written. Because typically if I'm doing yard work, I'm gonna do it on the weekends. I'm too busy to do it during the week.
Right.
And so I might do it on like a Sunday afternoon, and then I put the stuff out there that Sunday afternoon. Monday morning, I call it in, or I fill out the request form, and then people come pick it up on Wednesday. But the way I read some of this is it didn't seem like there'd be an option. Like I couldn't put it out until like 7 p.m. the night before. So if that's the case, what do I do with all my yard waste if I don't have the can? I can't put the stuff out until like 7 p.m. the night before, the pickup, like, where do I leave it?
Well, that's what I do. I mean, I put it in my backyard until the night before the pickup, and then I take it out to the street the night before.
The way, or what I'm looking at right now in chapter, section 50.06, point of collection, setting out, and removal of containers, special collections. A, it says specifically, roll-out waste containers shall be placed for collection at curbside on the designated day of service for collection by 7 a.m.
Mhm. All right, I was looking at 5007,
So,
maybe the next provision. All yard waste shall be placed like, E.
so that's for residents who choose to utilize the city-issued 96-gallon yard waste roll-out container, shall place such containers at the curbside no sooner than 7 p.m. the night prior.
What about 5007E? Time of placement.
We can clarify that. I see
Yeah.
how that could cause some confusion.
Okay. I mean, yeah, so I guess I understand what Alex and Jason have both been asking, but let me ask it another way. Let's say I live on Old Poplar Street, and I've had this issue before. What would I do? How would these amendments address my issue? What would I now do if I have yard waste and I live on Poplar Street as a result of these amendments that would be different than what I was doing before?
You could put it in a city-issued rollout, 96-gallon rollout. You could, if you chose, to use your own container, or you can place it on your property,
Okay,
not in a sidewalk or on a street.
okay.
You said you could use your own container?
If that is what they choose to do, it's not preferred, but yes, we would
I
still.
thought we said that would be advised against, right? That's not.
Well, I think maybe my guess is, when I asked if we could spell that out more in the ordinance, and you talked about, maybe we don't necessarily highlight it, but it's not prohibited, so you can do it.
We're
But
not gonna pick the yard waste up because it's in a non-city container. It would be picked up on the regular routing schedule. You would, for that specific yard waste pickup day.
Do you want to put some specificity to how big they can have a grand container?
Yeah.
I know if it was up to me, I would get the biggest container possible on the yard
Yeah.
waste.
But if we're gonna allow it, I think it needs to be in the actual ordinance, because I think a portion of this, kind of why it's come to us, is because of the confusion in the original ones, right?
yeah, I might at a minimum put like the maximum, like you can use, if you use your own, it can only be 96 gallons or whatever it is. That because I do, the lawyers out there would be like, well,
I would have a dumpster out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can clarify that in size.
Yeah. So, and also to frame our discussion, the way I understand this working is Jonathan gave his presentation, there's a number of amended ordinances, amendments to the code of ordinance here in the back of our packet, but to formally, if we're interested in proceeding along these lines, subject to, and I think we are, subject to a few of the tweaks that we've discussed, it would come to us probably on consent at an upcoming meeting, likely November 3rd, where there would be an ordinance saying, for all these, whereas, the Belmont City Council hereby amends the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 50 and Chapter 92 as attached, or something like that. So we would actually formally vote to approve it at a later council meeting. But
Plus, you would have to have your fee schedule adjusted, to
Yes.
include the bin cost of $85, so we'll bring that back to consent.
yeah,
Plus a possible budget
Budget
amendment.
amendment to purchase the bins.
So, yeah, First.
So what we're talking about here, I mean, this is a time, if there are specific provisions, as some of us have discussed here and there, that we think could be clarified, now's the time to raise that and it can be incorporated, but we will formally vote on this at an upcoming meeting.
With these city-approved 96 gallon, are we gonna do that as like a pilot program just for Poplar, or anybody?
Anyone.
But it would be permissive, obviously.
We don't.
I'm about to grab one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I'd have to get approval from the higher authority.
I think just for me, I think we need language in there that you can use your own can, but I trust y'all to put in the constraints or whatever the maximum is on that.
We can
So Charlie doesn't put a dumpster out there.
All right. Anything else? Now's the time. Any thoughts or feedback we
I
can
appreciate that.
incorporate into the formal ordinance that will approve it.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose to your original question about, the cost for the bins is one thing, the cost of collections another. So, if we set this precedent and then you do end up having, other areas of town want to come online and do the same thing, then I suppose then we'll have to address that then.
But I'm assuming, and I think I saw it, I mean, there's a lot to digest here, but Miles mentioned that the collection areas have been set up in in Stowe Manor Village, which has the HOA, and that is accounted, like, the ability to set those collection areas is established in the ordinance, is that correct?
Yes.
I thought it was, but I just want to make sure, so that from their perspective, from Stowe Manor Village, they're able to now do what they've already been doing in practice, which is set up these collection areas, and any other HOA that wanted to could also do that. It's allowed in the ordinance. So, all right, very good. Anything else? Then I don't think we need a formal motion. I think we've sort of given the direction, and we'll look for this and the actual formal approval at an upcoming meeting, November 3rd, likely, I would assume.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, very good. So that takes care of new C1. Now we come to new C2. It's called Public Hearing to Designate the A.C. Lineberger House Number 1, located at 203 North Main Street, as a local historic landmark. Do we actually, is it a public hearing? I'm being told no.
It's not.
All right, here comes Reagan. So I do not need a motion to go into public hearing. I'll just recognize Reagan Murphy from the Planning Department to present this item, our senior planner.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. Good evening, council. Yes, this is not a public hearing, but it is a discussion and consideration of a resolution that would recommend designation of the property at 203 North Main Street as a local historic landmark. It's been about a year since one of these was brought before y'all, so just as a quick refresher, we have an interlocal agreement with Gaston County to allow the Gaston County Historic Preservation Commission to serve as our historic preservation body and hear these requests. These requests are initiated by the property owners, and I believe the property owner is here tonight, so if you'd like to hear from them, they are here as well in support of the request. But a property may request this, bring it before the Gaston County Board, and then with a recommendation from you all, the Gaston County Board of Commissioners may adopt an ordinance through a public hearing to designate this property as a local historic landmark, and then the property is able to receive some tax benefits as a result. And so with that, I will introduce Shelby Barkley from Gaston County Planning and Building Inspection, or Planning and Development Services, to present the case and share the report.
Good evening, everyone. I am Shelby Barkley with Gaston County Planning and Zoning. I am one of the planners who serves our Historic Preservation Commission. Landmark designation LM 250718000005 is a local landmark designation for property parcel 125409. It is located at 203 North Main Street. The applicants are John and Jody Kynes. The owner is Lighthouse Lodge LLC, which the Kyneses are listed as managers on the Secretary of State's online business registration tool. The property is being referenced as the A.C. Lumberger House Number 1, not to be confused with the A.C. Lumberger House Number 2. The HPC has demonstrated the historic significance of the home and property as shown in the designation report. It reads, the Lumberger House Number 1 possesses significance on the local level within Belmont and Gaston County, North Carolina, which was built for the prominent textile leader, Abel Caleb Lumberger. The Lumberger House Number 1 was designed by one of the first leaders in North Carolina's early 20th century architectural perfection, Charles Christian C.C. Hook. Built in 1910, the Lumberger House Number 1 stands as an excellent example of American craftsman architectural style. The Lumberger House Number 1's character-defining features include broad front gable with projecting side gables, all with half timbering at their apexes. Overall, the house reflects the wealth and prosperity brought about by the textile industry within Belmont. Process-wise, this request has followed the standard landmark designation procedures, and I apologize for the confusion about hearing versus meeting. Yes, this is a public meeting. The next step is the county commissioners for a public hearing. So the applicant has been working with the HPC and staff since the end of 2023. The property was placed on the study list at the HPC's meeting in January 16th of 2024. At this time, the designation report was submitted to the HPC and staff for review, but the applicants decided to postpone the designation process. The application and designation report were resubmitted on July 18th, 2025. Oh, sorry. Slow down. I'm sorry. I just get rolling.
I understand, believe me, I understand. Having sat through a 4-month trial, where the judge did that to everyone every 5 minutes.
Yeah, it sounds like an auctioneer. I'm sorry.
I know it's exciting, but
Okay. Do you need me to repeat anything?
you can pick up where you left off.
Okay. The designation report was sent to the state for review and comments on August 14th of 2025. State comments were reviewed by the HPC staff and the applicant, and the HPC recommends moving this request to the public hearing stage at their last meeting on September 16th of 2025. This map shows that the property is located on the corner of North Main Street and West Woodrow Avenue in downtown Belmont. The orthophoto shows the main house that is surrounded by other residential homes. Several of these homes are also designated local landmarks. Please note that the aerial photography does not reflect the renovation that took place earlier this year, which added an attached garage to the western elevation of the house. This map shows who all was notified with information about this public meeting. Letters were mailed out on October 7th. A public hearing, should have been meeting, sign was also placed in the yard on October 7th. Similar public noticing guidelines will be followed for the Gaston County Board of Commissioners meeting on December 9th, when a final decision will be made on the case. Please note that all of the photos that you will see in the upcoming slides are provided by the applicant. This is the exterior of the home as viewed from North Main Street. This image shows the south elevation as seen from West Woodrow Avenue and highlights the slate roof and projecting gable adorned with plaster and decorative half timbering. Also visible from this elevation is the attached garage that was part of the 2025 restoration project. The garage facade was designed to match the historic features of the home. This image shows the north elevation as seen from the neighboring property, also known as the R.B. Suggs House, which is a local landmark property. This elevation also features a projecting gable adorned with plaster and decorative half timbering. The second story features 2 double-hung 9/1 windows. Exposed rafters accent the deep overhanging eaves. The western elevation shows the rear of the home, where the garage entry and covered back porch were added during the 2025 restoration project. The rear elevation also includes a kitchen, laundry room, and bedroom, all a part of a renovation that was completed around 1980. Of note, the 2025 restoration was well documented throughout the designation report and received an award for excellence from the Preservation Gaston. This slide shows the site plan accompanying the designation report. The local landmark designation request only includes the property and the exterior of the home. The guest cottage on the west side of the property is not considered a contributing structure and is not included in this designation request. This means that if designated, the guest cottage will be taxed at its regular value. The information on this slide is taken directly from the Gaston County tax records, and the present use value program coordinator estimated the changes in tax revenue you see here. If the designation request is approved and the property owners go through the application process with our county's tax department, the city of Belmont would see a decrease in property taxes collected by $2,395.94. Historic local landmarks fall under the real property tax exemptions and inclusions program. This exclusion is allowed through General Statute 105-278 and allows the property to be taxed on the basis of 50% of the true value of the property. I also have a breakdown by structure if you guys need it. This slide provides an overview of the tax deferment program. It is something the applicant would have to apply for and is property owner specific. It is not automatic or enrollment. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding the process and anything about the history. We do have a member of our HPC staff here, as well as the property owners.
Thank you. Questions for Shelby? Was this one of the homes on the tour?
It was not. It was under renovation at the tour.
I just had a couple, because Alex might be able to answer, because you know more about historic preservation and renovation. I'm just curious as to these renovations that were done, up to and including this year. Does that have any effect or impact on the eligibility for historic designation?
No, because particularly they chose the materials that contribute to the actual house and the existing house. In fact, what they've done is remarkable as far as renovation. And let alone just the architectural piece, because they look at it from a Main Street perspective where it's facing the front. Now, it does have that side as well. So there are some type of stipulations which Lucy and team, I believe, have already looked at and have meet the qualifications for. But you also have to look at the significance of what this house represents at Belmont, right? This is one of our textile titans in our area, so there's that big component as well. But it checks all the boxes.
Okay. And I'm assuming then that it doesn't matter, because I'm a bit...
Think of remember the train depot station? That's actually a registered facility. Remember when they added on to it, they had to keep up with the facade of the actual building, which they did, right?
And yes, and the fact that the garage was actually added, that doesn't, the garage can still be part of that as a supporting structure, even though the garage is newer than the cottage, which is not.
Again, it's behind the house. One of the main things they look at is the front of the house.
I see. Okay. Well, those are just questions I had about just not knowing. So. Any other questions?
I think this will be great for Belmont. When these homes come before us in these local designations, it helps us maintain this charm that we have, and obviously provides a benefit to the homeowners as well, but they're the ones that are giving us the benefit in the community by renovating these places. So.
All right, well, there's nothing further from anyone else. I guess I would entertain a motion to adopt the resolution recommending approval of the local historic landmark designation.
I'd like to make that motion.
Motion by Alex, second by Catherine. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Unanimously approved. Thank you, everyone. So that concludes item C2. Moving on to item C3, request to approve no large truck through traffic on Julia Avenue. And here comes Police Chief Falls to present to council on this topic.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council.
Good evening.
Alex? Hey, Chief.
Can you go to the next slide, please?
You should have the clicker right next
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry.
So a citizen, concerned resident on Julia Avenue inquired the city council about large trucks using Julia Avenue as a cut-through. This sparked discussions between staff to see if there was a way to limit large trucks from utilizing Julia Avenue as a cut-through. Then I researched the process for regulating through truck traffic on local streets as well as the state highway system, state maintained roads. Traffic unit was assigned to look into the matter and put together a document with the pros and cons of the actual data. In North Carolina, local governments and the Department of Transportation and CDOT can work together to limit large truck traffic on residential or other local streets. This is normally when there's a state maintained roadway there. So then the exact process depends on whether the street is part of the state highway system or a municipal street system. If a roadway is part of the state highway system, NCDOT has the sole authority to prohibit trucks. To begin the process, local government must submit a request to NCDOT. The justification for restrictions are required, which requires a justification in restricting and prohibiting truck traffic. Valid reasons include safety concern, road capacity issues, and protecting the road from surface damage. Since Julia Avenue is a city street and not a state maintained roadway, council can enact an ordinance limiting large truck traffic on a local street without involving NCDOT. We actually do have an ordinance in place currently. I'll get to that in a minute. The pros: efficiency for business. Commercial vehicles may benefit from shorter travel routes, reducing time and fuel costs. Reduce congestion elsewhere, allowing access to ease traffic load on other primary routes by providing an alternative connection, like Main Street Eagle and Main Street South Central, which we call South and South. Street width and design. Julia Avenue is narrow with limited shoulder space, no sidewalks or curbing, making it unsuitable for sustained commercial truck traffic. Property damage. This isn't saying it was, it's just saying in general. Past incidents suggest trucks using narrow residential routes often cause damage to yards, curbs, and signs.
Although we have had reports of.
We have had some
Yes.
damage. And if you'll just think about the construction that just happened on Armstrong Ford Road near New Hope, and the other one was detoured, how the size of the roadway with those large trucks going in there on the narrow roads had to go off the side of the road a little bit, damaging people's yards along the way.
Destroyed mailboxes.
And mailboxes.
That one, for one, wasn't our doing.
And Julia Avenue does have a lot of curves and stuff and hills, so.
And I-
Safety concerns, increased heavy vehicle presence raises risk for pedestrians, bicyclists, and residents entering or exiting driveways.
I'd also add to this, right, this is one of the streets that we pave and that we own, so there's the wear and tear that trucks provide to the street that we're accountable for, the taxpayers are accountable for, right?
Absolutely. And traffic flow issues as far as cons, truck navigating tight turns may block lanes or require wide swings, increasing collision risk. And I think this is mainly talking about like transfer trucks, not like dump trucks. The neighborhood impact, noise and vibration and increased wear on pavement would negatively affect residential quality of life, like the jet brakes. There are, like in Cramerton, there's a sign that says near Lakewood Road, that says like no jet brakes during this area between here and here. And this is just an example of two locations. This is from South Point Road looking down towards, I guess that would be west, and then another westward view out towards the other end of Julia Avenue when you're coming up near South Main Street. And the traffic unit conclusion was, while there are some logistical benefits to businesses, the safety hazards, infrastructure concerns, and impact on neighborhood livability outweigh the advantages. And Julia Avenue is not designed to safely accommodate regular commercial traffic, and restricting truck access to less, should say 3 axles, remain more practical option. And then here's our current city ordinance 7103, no through truck traffic on certain streets. No more than 2 axles shall be allowed, such as 10th Street between East Catawba and Park Hill Drive, which I just learned that the sign actually says no vehicles 3 axles or more, and I spoke to Jonathan with Public Works today, and they're going to get on top of changing the sign to say to, it wasn't really in compliance with this, was an oversight, so going back through my stuff today, I noticed that, so we're already on top of getting that changed to be correct with the ordinance. And then Alice Avenue between 6th Street and the property line of 7220 Wilson Boulevard. That happened before my time here. And then it talks about this shall apply to through trucks Only, however, the following exclusions may apply: school or church buses, emergency or municipal vehicles, local delivery trucks associated with residential use, and then it talks about the ordinance. And with the ordinance, you know, as council, you can put whatever exclusions in there you choose. If you see some that are not listed, you have that right. And then recommendation is amend the city of ordinance 7103, section A, to include Julia Avenue. Under the fourth part of the ordinance, this would create section C, Julia Avenue between South Main Street to South Point Road as no through truck traffic. Some other recommendations through some of just information that I knew prior to this that wasn't a part of the actual ordinance that needs to be kind of tightened up is amend the city of Belmont ordinance 7103 section A, 6th Street between US 2974 and Church Street as no through truck traffic. Reason being, in 2020, we had some complaints with cut-through traffic along with other things down through there throughout the years, like speeding. And in 2020, we did contact the GPS mapping companies that were notified of 6th Street being designated as no through truck large traffic due to complaints. So that was done, but there's just an oversight as far as getting the actual 7103 updated with this information, as well as amend the city of Belmont ordinance 7103 to reflect Brook Street between 5th Street and Tucker Street as no through truck traffic. In 2023, GPS mapping companies were notified, along with signs installed by Public Works on Brook Street due to complaints and property damage at Tucker Street and Brook Street by the fields. So we worked with Public Works to get all that taken care of. And like I said, it was just oversight on actually updating the ordinance and getting it.
So just all that's been done, it's just they haven't added it to the ordinance.
Exactly, just the ordinance just to be amended to to have this included.
Yeah.
Yes.
I remember the Brook Street one
Yes.
vividly, although I was around in another one too.
She put her rocks out there for the transfer trucks, and I believe since the installation of the signs and everything in that area, we haven't had any more property damage at her location, at Tucker and Brook. And then next steps, if approved, November 3rd, regular city council meeting, ordinance amendment placed on the consent agenda, and then post duly erected signs in proper locations on all applicable streets. And then the police department will notify all GPS software companies to assist with insurance trucking companies are notified so that they don't cut through. That's not it's not going to, make sure it happens, but, that's where we come into play with ensure compliance is met through proper and efficient police measures to include educational outreach. Anytime that we have something that's new, we always make sure that we post the signs, put some orange, posts or flags or whatever on top of the signs. And then we always make sure that we educate the public before we take any kind of enforcement actions on anything that we do. It's just a standard thing that we do. And then this is an example of 10th Street and just the location of the sign. There is a sign to the right here, it's got a picture that talks about not cutting down Brook Street because of the tight turn on Brook as well. And I'll entertain any questions at this time.
If you just go back one, you said those signs will be replaced with over 2 axles, not
Yes.
just 3 axles.
As soon as tomorrow,
Okay.
possibly. Not going.
No, it's already in the
Sorry, it's official.
Thank you for your work on this.
Yeah.
We asked you guys to look into this, I'm sure it was a well thought out process. I know there's a number of residents along Julia that have brought this to our attention, and, we all know how tight that road is with no shoulders. There's certainly sidewalks, but, I firmly believe we need to make this change, but I think we also gotta be prepared for the side effects.
Absolutely.
Especially as you see Red Hawk opening up and you see Belmont 2 and 3 opening up. And so this is going to increase traffic on, Main Street, Central, Nixon.
There's a couple more trucks.
Right. So, not that there's anything we can do about that necessarily, but I think there's just something we need to be prepared for.
Yeah, understood.
The only one that draws major concern is when you're going down Keener and taking a left or a right on Central. Because that's where I know I received a call twice, and I can't believe it happened to the same person, but where he was at the intersection and a truck was trying to turn, and it actually nicked one of the cars, I think at the corner or something there.
And that's something that we'd have to work with DOT on, because
Yeah.
both of those are state maintained highways.
Well, I talked to NCDOT rep, and they said that was already designated to go down Arlstow Road as the no truck route. So I guess it's the software companies that need to update that. both of those are SDOT roads, so all the guys are handled on there.
So,
Should we put a sign over there?
well, since it's
Since it's
CDOT, what do we do? Do we do anything to that? Should we reach out to them and just
We
see?
can reach back out and see if they have signage they can put up, since they've already gone through the process of contacting the company.
Maybe like right before RL, you must take, the trucks must take that plat.
Yeah, I can reach
I'll
back.
get with the manager and we can take care of that.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
So in terms of action items, as Chief indicated in his presentation, it sounds like we're all on board with the recommendation, and then that, as well as a couple additional cleanup items from previous decisions would be added to 7103, and that would also likely be on the consent agenda for next meeting. Is that correct, Miles?
That's correct, sir.
All right, well, very good. Well, that does make me feel good that every once in a while we can hear from citizens with concerns and actually do something to address them effectively. So every once in a while we manage to do good. So I'm sure the residents of Julia will be happy to hear that these changes are coming.
So is there a motion needed for that?
No, I think
For the
it's,
request.
we've sort of given our sense, and then we vote on it as part of the consent.
That's
agenda.
right, I'm sorry.
Is that right, Miles?
That's correct.
And then when we vote on it, consent should, in theory, happen as, in effect, as soon as we.
Right, there'd be an ordinance in the consent, and as soon as we approve it, I'd sign it after the meeting, so. All right, well, very good. That concludes item C3, which brings us to C4, Vision Zero Belmont Year 1 Annual Report. And here, once again, is Senior Planner Reagan Murphy.
I'm back again.
Yes.
Good evening once again. Thank you all for having us. So in the Vision Zero plan that y'all adopted just over a year ago this month, one of our recommendations and strategies that we committed to was presenting an annual progress report to all of you on how things are going. So this presentation is for your information only. If you have any questions, myself and Captain Black are happy to answer those. But really, we're hoping to just celebrate the first year of progress on Vision Zero with you all tonight, let you know what we've been up to, and forecast what's next for year 2. So with that, I do want to mention, and I know that I sent out an email earlier today, but we did have an error in the data in the report that was published as part of the formal agenda. We were able to catch that last week, but essentially what happens is when there's a crash in our community, Belmont PD or the Sheriff's Department or whoever's responding to that submits that crash report and it rolls up to NCDOT. We get that data then back from NCDOT to be able to do our analysis, look at our maps, and see where those crashes are taking place. So essentially what happened is in the data we got back from NCDOT, there was an error and a crash that was actually property damage only, was misreported as a fatal crash. So when we checked that against our police department records, we were able to confirm it was not actually a fatal crash. So that just tweaks some of the stats in the report. The overarching trends are still generally consistent, so I'll talk a little bit about those. But just wanted to flag that for y'all. We received the updated report earlier today, and that'll be published after this meeting for folks to review publicly as well. But with that, I'll start with just a really brief recap of crash trends that we've seen since we adopted the action plan. The data that we reviewed in the action plan, as a reminder, we looked at a 5-year period beginning June 1st, 2019 and extending to May 31st, 2024. Essentially, for this first annual report, we caught ourselves up to the most recently available data. So we took everything from June 1st, 2024, the end of that original period, up to the end of August 2025. And in the future, you're going to be seeing that data reported to you on a 12-month basis, but we do have a fun little 15-month reporting period for you this time. So over those 15 months, we saw just over 900 crashes. In the report, we said 9 of those were fatal and severe, but it's actually only 8. So we had 3 fatal crashes and 5 severe. Again, still more than we would like to see, but fewer than we thought when we originally analyzed that data. So that puts us at just under 1% of those crashes resulting in a fatality or a severe injury, which is consistent with what we saw in the data in the original action plan. And we actually, with that updated fatal and severe crash number, we're seeing a consistent rate of fatal and severe crashes per year. When you think about the fact that these happened over a 15-month period. So we're seeing just under 6.5 fatal and severe crashes per year. That number was consistent in the years that we looked at for the action plan as well.
And obviously, anything that is from 2019 to 2024, I'm assuming would have some dips.
Bit of variation
around
within there too, exactly. Yes, so when you think about that, we did see a pretty significant drop off in crashes and in fatal and severe crashes during 2020, extending into a bit of 2021. So even though we're kind of looking at this as, what's the average over an annual basis, we actually have probably seen a bit of a reduction in the annual fatal and severe crash rate because we saw a bit of a jump up after the pandemic. So we're, I believe, now starting to come down from that. And in future years, we'll see more of that year-over-year data as well. I do want to call out that we did see a bit of a bump up in average annual crashes. So we saw 721 crashes over a 12-month period in this latest study period compared to 620 crashes per year annually in our original study period for the action plan.
And if we compare this to the state of North Carolina, because I remember, I think, during the last NPO meeting that I went to, it actually increased in fatalities, so where we're saying ours is held relatively the same from an averaging perspective, right? I mean, we don't want any fatalities, but if I do recall, the entire state actually increased.
It is increasing. Yes, that's correct. Crashes and fatal and severe crashes are increasing at the state level. That's correct. So I want to just highlight a couple key trends that we saw. Some of these are new trends after having looked at this for a year since our action plan. Some of these are continuing trends that we identified in our action plan. Some good news is that based on this latest 15 months of data, while we're still seeing that pedestrians are overrepresented in our fatal and severe crashes compared to the number of crashes that they're involved in, the likelihood of a pedestrian being in a fatal or severe crash went down. It's not absent, that risk is not gone, but we are seeing some progress there. So that is a small win that we definitely want to call attention to. On the flip side, we did see some other concerning trends that we definitely are going to want to pay attention to with our outreach and our enforcement efforts moving into year 2. We did see that even though teens were involved in a similar ratio of crashes compared to our original action plan study period, they were involved in a higher share of those more severe crashes. So looking at, how we do education to our students, especially our younger drivers, and how we do outreach to students and families who are out walking around the community, that's even more important now than it's ever been. We also saw an increasing rate of fatal crashes where DWIs, driving while under the influence, or distracted driving were a factor. So again, the share of those crashes in total stayed consistent, but they resulted in more fatal and severe crashes in the last 15 months.
And I will say, not to downplay or minimize, but we're talking like something went from 2 to 3.
Yes,
It's not like we're talking about large.
We're not talking like 4 crashes to 47 or something like that. Yes, it's only been a year, so take all of this, that's a great point, take all of this with a bit of a grain of salt because it's just year-over-year data. As we move towards our target year of 2030 and we have a couple years of data to look back on, these trends will clarify and we'll be able to say, okay, that year maybe was an outlier, on the whole we're trending positively, or over several years we're seeing this become a significant issue. So,
and this does include I-85 data?
So on the whole, this does include I-85 when we're talking about the trends. When we get to looking at our high injury network, that's when we exclude I-85. That's right. Yep. Lastly, we saw intersection-related crashes jump up significantly. So there were not only there was a higher share of intersection related conflicts, they were also more dangerous. They were more severe or fatal. And then we had kind of a neutral stat similar to what we saw in our original action plan review. About 91% of crashes that didn't happen on I-85 were on the high injury network, and that's that network of those 15 most dangerous streets and 15 most dangerous intersections in our community. We also saw that 98% of crashes across our planning area happened on NCDOT-owned roads, and that again is consistent with what we saw in our original action plan efforts. I did just want to highlight, since we only had 8 fatal and severe crashes, I thought, we could take the opportunity to actually look at where each of them occurred. So as mentioned before, we did have a fatal crash on I-85. We also had a fatal crash on Armstrong Road. That is technically, even though it's in our planning area, and so we count it for Vision Zero purposes, it's outside of our city limits. So the only 2 fatal crashes that occurred in city limits were on I-85 and Wilkinson Boulevard at Browntown Road. Then we also had severe injury crashes on Wilkinson Boulevard, again close to Browntown Road. That's an intersection, just for y'all's information, that NCDOT's traffic safety unit is taking a deeper look at and assessing to see if they can provide some plans for safety improvements at that intersection that they would help to implement sooner. So we're waiting to hear back from them on what they recommend at Wilkinson and Browntown, but that is one of our most dangerous intersections in the city, and we're working closely with NCDOT on addressing that sooner than later. In addition to that, we had severe injury crashes on Catawba Street, Armstrong Ford Road, Hickory Grove Road, and South Point Road. And I think that's all I've got in the slide deck for the crash trends. So any questions about those before we talk about some of our other implementation efforts? All right. Well, with that, I'm going to welcome Captain Black up with me to jump into the implementation efforts we've undertaken.
Thank you. Good evening, council members, Mayor Pro Tem. Kind of before I start on the implementation stuff, I kind of wanted to give a huge thank you to city staff, especially Reagan. This first year has been an absolute huge success. I think you'll see that once we get on to the presentation. So I hope you guys feel the same, but it was, after putting this data together, my head kind of exploded. I said, we have done a lot. And I hope you see that through this presentation, but definitely wanted to give a huge shout out to our city staff, fire department, public works, street departments, Reagan for planning and zoning, everybody that was involved in it. It was a lot of work. I think we're doing a lot of good things in Belmont to make our streets safe, and hopefully you kind of see that. So with that, I'll get into the implementation kind of recap. So our implementation strategies consist of what we call the 5 E's, and that includes education, engagement, encouragement and policy, engineering and planning, enforcement and monitoring, evaluation and reporting. That's kind of what the guidelines we use when we start doing these implementation phases throughout the city. So the first one is education and engagement. In year 1 implementation activities, fast facts, we kind of reached 7 of 8 of our strategies completed in progress for year 1, which was pretty huge. Some of the highlights were our 12 Safe Kids events that we've done all year long. That includes Safe Kids, which is North Carolina Safe Kids. They kind of specialize in child safety seats, child pedestrian safety, and so we kind of partner with them. I'm sure you've seen the Safe Kids trailer that we use at some of our events. That is that group that we do. So we had our first year, we had our first Walk to School Day event where we had over 300 attendees. We just had our second one after October 1st, so that'll be a part of year 2 annual report. But our first one was an absolute huge success, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in later slides. We had our first walk audit event as well, where we looked at a certain section in the city with different city officials, city staff, residents in that area, as well as county members as well. We did 2 pedestrian and bike safety proclamations. We had over 100 children's bike helmets awarded through our North Carolina DOT bicycle helmet program. We're also involved in our schools, all of our elementary schools, as well as the high school and the college in safety education with DWIs and standardized field sobriety. And then we launched, or fixing to launch our webpage later this month. So the first walk to school day that we had was pretty big, to say the least. It actually we had 2 different news outlets that came out there that morning. I think it was, I know some of you were there that morning. Huge success. We had so much that we ended up, having one in the fall. And because of the turnout we had, the response we got, the feedback we got from that walk to school day, we're going to continue this moving forward. We're looking to have at least 2 a year. So that was a lot due to volunteers, parents, the PTO program at the school, as well as the principal, Gaston County Schools. They all came together and made that possible. So. And Reagan threw that in there. But since she did, I'm going to highlight that good-looking man right there. So we'll move on. She did that without me knowing. So, I actually think she took it off, but he didn't. Oh, wow. So we had our first Keener Boulevard Walk Audit that we hosted. We actually had so many participants in this. Some of whom I believe are in the audience here. We actually had to divide the group up into 4 different groups, which was absolutely amazing. So, and what we did, we kind of focused on the location was obviously Page Primary School, but we focused on Keener Boulevard, Ewing, Vine, Parkdale, and R.L. Stowe. And kind of what we came out of that is recommendations for a possible halt signal or even a full signal at Keener and Parkdale, crossing improvements, the crosswalk there at Keener and Ewing, as well as more signage. So it was we had county officials, county transportation officials. We had a good number of parents, residents, the principal, as well as city staff that all kind of were able to walk this area and kind of see what people are walking in that area, kind of what they face, what challenges they face, and see what we can do as a city to kind of improve that section. Our next location, we haven't determined a date yet, but our next location obviously will be kind of the Main Street corridor, where we'll be looking at downtown area, obviously different crosswalks and intersections in the Main Street area. So,
I'd be pretty interested to see the Main Street analysis because we were just down there downtown, and it happens to us a lot. But it's kind of tough when you're going across those crosswalks when you have cars parked all along the line in the parallel parking.
Right.
It's almost tough to see if a car is coming.
yeah, and then the trees right there just recently got trimmed, but even those sometimes pose a challenge. So that'll be definitely one of the focal points in that corridor, that Main Street between Catawba and definitely the railroad tracks, and even past that. That'll kind of be a focal point for sure.
As part of your key recommendations, I know this gets a lot of mention in our TAC meetings. It's one of those kind of problematic points in that same area, and that's the intersection with Keener and R.L. Stowe. Did anything come out of that as far as recommendations with that cross?
Yes, we do have some recommendations. We're still putting that together.
Okay.
Do you want to?
So let me jump ahead.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But we are. There was a lot of feedback that we got.
Yeah.
So much that we're compiling everything right now.
Okay.
And we're more more than glad to present that here.
Whenever you get to it. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead. While you were covering key recommendations in that corridor, I thought that might be.
Yeah, that's all right. And I will note, so these are really just a handful of the recommendations that came out of the walk audit, and we had a discussion afterwards with all the participants. We actually did a prioritization activity, so everyone got a dot or a handful of dot stickers.
You love your dots.
We love our dots in the planning department. So yes, we put everybody through that, and these were kind of the recommendations that came out at the top, but there was also a lot of feedback, and I think one of the most poignant parts of the experience was when we did all cross Keener at the R.L. Stowe intersection, and several folks made the comment to me, I'm sure to you as well, that they were really grateful we had such a large police department presence with us, because normally they don't feel comfortable making that turn. I think part of the reason that's not up on the slide is there's, I think, a lot more coordination with NCDOT that
Right.
needs to happen, because what we identified there is, folks who are, we've advocated in the past for a no right turn on red sign, but what we realized is when the light's red on RL Stowe, that's not actually when there's an issue. It's when the light's green and folks think they have the right of way to make the right turn and they don't think to look for pedestrians in that crosswalk. And because the crosswalk's set further back from the intersection, kind of at an angle, you might be just starting to walk through the intersection and a car has already made it all the way around that corner and is probably now at 30, 35 miles an hour coming at you in the crosswalk when you have the right of way as a pedestrian. So some of that I think is going to take maybe some creative solutions or engineering or repainting of that sidewalk crosswalk. But that was a big issue that we identified then as well.
Next is our encouragement and policy, second part of our E's. And so we had one strategies completed for year one. And some of the highlights for this one was our Safe Streets Pledge that launched in our Walk to School Day, as well as our funding applications submitted to the Safe Streets for All for several pilot programs. And we'll dive into more of the grant, Safe Streets for All grant here shortly. And then the last part of our implementation efforts, or one of the last parts, is our Vision Zero program, which was one of the first things we did. And this kind of kicked off at the Walk to School Day at Belmont Central, was actually when we unveiled the car. This car is now assigned to one of our downtown officers and is being seen every single day downtown, which is kind of where we wanted it. We wanted it to be seen to bring awareness to Vision Zero and what we're doing here at the city. So, and with that, I will turn it back over to Reagan to go into the website and the pledge.
So Captain Black mentioned we just launched our Safe Streets Pledge last week at our Walk to School Day event, and we actually just launched our Vision Zero webpage this morning. So that is now live and available as well. That's got a really easy tagline to remember. It's just cityofbelmont.org, vision-zero-belmont. The Safe Streets Pledge has a bit of a more complicated link, so we've put the QR code there on the slide for you in case you'd like to check it out. But the Vision Zero Pledge for us is a really easy but important call to action for our residents and our community members who want to start to get involved. It's an opportunity for folks to commit to a couple different agreements about how they'll conduct themselves as drivers, pedestrians, cyclists on our streets, committing themselves to safer behaviors, committing themselves to making sure they're aware. We also, this is something that really is close to my heart, we have a spot on the pledge where folks can dedicate the pledge to someone or something. I think of the first couple of submissions that we've gotten since Walk to School Day, we've had a lot of kids dedicated to their kids. And wanting to be sure that their kids have a safe environment to grow up and play in, and a community that they can safely travel. So that, I think, for me, really speaks to the importance of an effort like this. I'll keep going, but that QR code will come back up at the end in case you didn't get to scan it now. So moving right along, our third E is engineering, and we've kind of broadened that to also include planning. And as Captain Black and Councilman Rumfeld have mentioned, we've done quite a lot of planning and coordination around Vision Zero over the last year. We had 4 of our 4 strategies that were slated for year one that we started work on. We've had 4 TAC meetings in coordination with NCDOT. We do those quarterly, where we've started to advocate for some of our Vision Zero corridors in particular. We also got a lot of support from NCDOT Division 12 for our Safe Streets for All grant application, which I'll talk about in just a bit. We also, and I went back on my calendar and counted these, we attended or participated in 18 different coordination meetings with the MPO, Carolina Thread Trail, and Gaston County to coordinate on transportation efforts and advocate for, safe streets in Belmont. Some of those were existing meetings, so planning meetings for For example, the Gaston County Comprehensive Transportation Plan or the GCLNPO Metropolitan Transportation Plan, both of which have implications for whether we get NCDOT funding through the annual funding process at the state level. So to have us in the room advocating for Vision Zero improvements in particular in those conversations has been really helpful and really important to lifting some of those projects up and making sure folks at the county and the region know that they're a priority for us. We also submitted 2 federal funding applications for Vision Zero projects. As we know, we did not receive funding for the Abbey Creek Greenway submittal, and we are still waiting for our debrief meeting to kind of hear our lessons learned on that application. But as soon as we kind of know, we'll have a better sense of what types of projects might be more competitive in the future for that grant opportunity if we choose to pursue it again. And we are still waiting to hear back on Safe Streets for All. And we've also done some work, Captain Black alluded to it, but we've been coordinating with Public Works and the fire department on trimming back some trees and improving kind of the visibility barriers on Main Street to address some of those visibility concerns that Councilman Zutz mentioned.
The only thing I would mention, I know we didn't proceed because we already had funding, but it was a little disheartening because with the NPO they do the CMAQ funding, and the city of Gastonia and Mount Holly were the only 2 municipalities out of the Gaston, Cleveland, Lincoln area that applied to it. Gastonia backed out. Mount Holly got the full $1.8 million, and there was no competition to it. I think that's low-hanging fruit for us to just apply, even if we already have funds that are being allocated to us, just apply.
Sure.
I mean, imagine what 1.8, if we would have been awarded that. So I think that was a missed opportunity for us, that may be a lesson learned that we could potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate you mentioning that. I know that some of the reason from staff's perspective that we didn't pursue that this time around really was to prepare us to be competitive for CMAQ in future rounds. If you remember, the city has already received CMAQ funds for part of the rail trail, and NCDOT typically will not consider a second application from the same jurisdiction unless you've demonstrated forward progress on that existing application. We had some right-of-way concerns and some challenges with the proposed alignment with that route that we were still figuring out. They were resolved this summer, but unfortunately after the deadline for the CMAQ funds passed. So that was really one of the biggest reasons. I will also add that through our efforts to apply for these other 2 federal grants, we've now gotten updated designs and engineering plans for a lot of the types of proposals that we would put forward to CMAQ. So we're now in a place where we've started to make that forward progress on rail trail. We're showing NCDOT, hey, we know how to manage a CMAQ grant, and we're making steady progress with this. And we've also got the engineering and concepts to back up applications on other projects. So I feel really strongly about CMAQ, in 2026 and moving forward. But I agree with you. I think we definitely need to throw our hat in the ring for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of funding and grants, so like I mentioned, we have not heard back yet on Safe Streets for All, but just wanted to remind you all, we did get approval from this body to go for that full $25 million application. And I am really, really proud of the application that Belmont put forward. I think it's really unique in the amount of partnership and support we got at a local, a regional, and even a state level. We ended up receiving $50,000 in local match contribution from NCDOT's traffic safety unit. So they committed some funds to help us out. We were able to leverage almost $3 million in committed developer improvements and in lieu payments for locations along our high injury network that we could leverage for local match. And, we'll come up with the rest potentially, or have those conversations with you all about how we will comprise the rest if we receive that funding allocation. We did receive 15 letters of support from our local, regional, and statewide partners, including several letters of support from some of our state representatives. And we also got a boost of support from Senator Budd's office at the federal level. So what we've learned is The federal offices typically will not give you a letter of support up front, but once you submit that application, they'll see what's been submitted from their jurisdictions, and give a thumbs up kind of on the back end to certain applications. So we learned over the summer that we did get that thumbs up from Senator Budd's office, kind of on the back end, the reviewing side. So that to us is kind of a nod of approval, a sign that we're going in the right direction. So that being said, originally we hoped to know by around now whether we got that grant or not. In September, we learned from our state Vision Zero cohort that there was a delay of a month or two, so we were then expecting to hear maybe in November or December. With the government shutdown, probably going to be another couple months after that. So we will hopefully hear in 2025, but it may be early 2026 by the time we hear. So just want to level set expectations around that. But as soon as we know something, you all will know something as well. I'll hand it back to Captain Black for enforcement.
Okay, leading in our enforcement and monitoring implementation strategies for year one. We did complete 4 strategies for the first year, and some of our highlights were the 12 governor's highway safety programs that we conducted. There were 12, but we did them multiple times. I'll get into that in the next slide. But overall, I think we did 25 or 26 campaign programs that we conducted over the first year. We had targeted enforcement efforts around school zones, so much that the first 2 weeks of school, the city of Bellwood actually made the news on how much enforcement actions we were doing during school traffic. The third is the DWI and seatbelt checkpoints that we host through our DWI grant enforcement officer that is part of their duties as a DWI officer. And then last is our speed and traffic volume monitoring at one of our high injury network locations, which was Keener Boulevard, and that consisted of our stealth stat studies as well as our radar and watch forms that we conducted along that corridor. So the Governor's Highway Safety Program campaigns, I'm sure everybody's heard of these, obviously, but these are some of the social media posts that we had posted throughout year one. They consist of the booze it and lose it, click it or ticket, the get pulled over, move over, get pulled over, speed a little, lose a lot, and those are some of the social media posts that we conducted over the first year during the implementation phase. The next, we are in, like I said, the student safety education campaigns. So we have a DWI enforcement grant. We actually were so successful with it, the state awarded us a second position. The second position, or the first position, has now ended as of October 1st. But next year we're looking at applying for another one. They actually extended the first one that we did because we were so successful, which is kind of unheard of with agencies. Most agencies only have one. We're kind of a select few that have 2 because of how successful we were with it. The school outreach at Belmont Middle School, South Point High School, and Belmont Abbey College. A part of that education that we do within the schools, some of the schools have actually let us in the classroom, and we actually do DWI, pedestrian safety, and education with the schools, partnering with the schools. And then we also are at our National Night Out, we have a student and family outreach. I know all of you have been to our National Night Out. We do the DWI education with the goggles and the golf cart, where they put on the goggles and try to run through a course. We also do the field sobriety testing, where students and adults can kind of go through that and see what it does, actually, what it does to you. So some of those educational outreach programs is what we've done. And then last, for the E's, I'll hand it back over to Reagan to go over the evaluation.
So again, for evaluation and reporting, these really consist of our efforts to be transparent with you all, the community, and share what our program's doing. Look at how we've done and where we can improve, and then also share our lessons learned with other folks who either have Vision Zero programs or might be considering adopting a Vision Zero program across the state. So we've been meeting regularly with our Vision Zero Advisory Board. We have quarterly meetings with them. Tonight we're presenting our annual progress report to you. We also had a 6-member cohort for the first time on behalf of Belmont attend and participate in the North Carolina Vision Zero Leadership Institute in Chapel Hill. We've continued to participate monthly in those meetings with that cohort across the state. We also had a conference proposal selected for the North Carolina State Planning Conference that was held in Charlotte last week. And our program has officially now been recognized with 2 regional or statewide awards for Vision Zero. So really excited about that. This was our coalition who attended the Vision Zero Leadership Institute. And like I mentioned, we had a session just last Wednesday that myself also want to shout out Planning Director Tiffany Farrow, who was part of that presentation, and Captain Black got to attend the planning conference, got a taste of that, which hopefully he enjoyed. I know several planners came up to me and, Captain Black gave planning and the other departments our shout outs earlier, but I want to give a huge shout out to Captain Black and to the police department. I got so many compliments from other planning departments across North and South Carolina and other planners who have come up and told me how they've been trying to coordinate across, their other departments, trying to coordinate with their police department, which is such an important stakeholder for Vision Zero, and have not had anywhere near the success that Belmont has seen with our police department, really leading Vision Zero in our community. And I just want y'all to know how rare that is, to see the police department be so involved and really taking ownership and leadership, not just participating on a task force, but leading that effort and really owning it. It's something that I think makes our Vision Zero program really special and really impactful in ways that it wouldn't be otherwise if it were just a planning or a public works initiative. So just want to make sure they get their recognition as well. And yes, I know we've shared with you before about the Vision Zero Safety Award that we won at the Leadership Institute, and I am now at liberty to share publicly that we were also awarded the Improving Quality of Life Award by the Central Carolina Council of Governments at their Region of Excellence Awards ceremony 2 weeks ago. So lots of really exciting recognition for our program, and we're hoping to keep that momentum going.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Thank you.
congrats, that's awesome.
Thank you very much. So with that, if there's any questions about year 1, we're happy to answer those. If not, I can share a brief forecast for year 2, and then that's all I got for you. So let's keep it rolling. All right. So for year 2, across our 5 buckets of implementation, as you heard earlier, we're going to continue our quarterly walk audits with Main Street being the next location. We'll continue to do social media campaigns for our Governor's Highway Safety Program efforts, but we're also looking to start doing some of those to kind of piggyback on our Walktober resolutions and our National Bike Month resolutions. So formalize those a little bit more. Something we're exploring, so city employees receive a safety day as an employee benefit for participating in safety training. So we're looking to work with our HR staff to add traffic safety education as an opportunity and a training for folks that would count towards their safety day, to encourage our employees to also be safe stewards of our streets. And then we're also, it's ambitious, but it's exciting. If y'all have participated in open streets events or like a Ciclavia or Biketoberfest is an event that goes on annually in Charlotte. One of our recommendations in the plan is to start holding community-wide open streets events. So we're hoping to plan and host our first open streets event sometime next year in coordination, of course, with all of our peer departments, but very much looking forward to that. For encouragement, we're going to continue to encourage residents and visitors and all who use our streets to take that Safe Streets pledge. And then we've got 2 pilot programs that are described in our action plan that we are seeking funding for through our Safe Streets for All grant. So that's something that would also be funded as part of that grant if awarded. So TBD on that, but keep your fingers crossed. For engineering and planning, we're gonna continue to seek funding sources. I know for us, seeing those capital improvements is really the meat on the bones, right? We can do all this outreach, we can change driver and pedestrian behavior, but we need to also see those changes to the streetscape. So we're really pursuing funding in as many avenues as we can to make those physical changes to the built environment to back up the policies and the education that we're doing. And then also, you just adopted our revised comprehensive land use plan last month at the workshop. One of the key recommendations there is to revise our land development code to bring it into alignment with the new comp plan. And in coordination with that, we are going to take a very specific and targeted look at how Vision Zero strategies and principles and complete streets policies can integrate into that revised version of the LDC as well. We're going to continue our great work that PD is doing on enforcement of those dangerous driving behaviors and monitoring our speeds and our traffic volumes along the high injury network. And we're going to continue to participate in our statewide cohort and seek out those trainings so that we can continue to make this program the best it can be. And lastly, just next steps, I promised you that QR code would come back. If you haven't signed the Safe Streets Pledge, I would strongly encourage you to do that now. And other than that, we encourage you to share it out with your networks, anyone you know who travels on Belmont streets. And that's, I think, yeah, that's all we got. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions?
And this was
I
awesome.
want
Thank you
to
guys
commend
so
you
much.
guys, Reagan, Captain Black, your entire staffs, fire, public works, everybody who had a hand in this. It was a huge lift in 12 months, and what you guys have accomplished is really commendable. The awards that you've gotten, and fingers crossed on the grant application. But I think this really demonstrates to our citizens, to our schools, to all of our stakeholders that our police, our planning department, our city staff in its entirety are committed to motorist and pedestrian safety. So I think it deserves a hand.
Thank you both for that presentation. That was for information only, but it was good information to hear and all the good work that's being done. So that concludes the regular portion of the agenda. There being, well, Miles, is there anything else?
No, sir.
All right, then I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Alex, second by Charlie. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We stand adjourned. We will see everyone for our regular meeting on November 3rd.